Hey pageant fans, in this episode we're going to be talking about how to find the right pageant coach for you. So if you're a beginner pageant girl, stick around because you won't want to miss these tips. Hey pageant fans, welcome back to another episode of T-Stance on Pageantry, where we talk all things pageant related. I'm your host, Teresa. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new here, thanks for joining us. So you're a beginner pageant girl and you might be wondering, how do I go about finding the right pageant coach for me, or just finding a pageant coach in general? So usually what I tell people is that you can definitely find pageant coaches by Googling them in your area, by looking on social media. You can also reach out to past contestants as well as pageant organizers and ask them for recommendations about pageant coaches. Now, one thing I do want to insert right here is that do not let location be a barrier to finding a pageant coach. I know that there are a lot of people out there who still are skeptical about virtual pageant coaching, but I am here to assure you that virtual pageant coaching is definitely as effective as in-person coaching. And in fact, that's how a lot of the really great pageant coaches work. They work virtually because it's just not possible to be here, there, and everywhere around the world like we would like to be. Now let's talk a little bit about how to specifically find the right pageant coach for you. I often tell aspiring title holders, don't just run to a pageant coach because that person has trained someone that you know and like, and that person actually went on to win. What you do want to do is you want to speak to past clients of that coach just to make sure that, want to find out like, what was the experience like? Is this something that I'm looking for? And you want to look for, ideally, you want to look for experienced and quality coaches in your system, or at least a system that's similar to your pageant. For me, when I get interest reaching out to me, one of the first things that I like to do is I like to set up a call, or I like to meet with them in person if that's possible. And this is something that I personally like to do because it does allow me to see if we're going to be compatible, meaning, is this a client that I would want to work with? And the same is true for you as a contestant. You want to ask yourself, is this a coach that I would want to work with? Do we get along? Are they supportive? Like, do I trust them? Like, how does that like initial meeting make you feel about that coach? Are they speaking life into you? Are they excited to work with you, kind of thing? If they're not, then maybe the vibe is off. Maybe you guys are just not compatible in that way. You also want to choose or look for a coach who specializes in the area in which you need the most help in. So let's say you've already competed in a pageant and maybe your strength is runway, but you're not so great at interview. Then you want to look for a coach whose strength is in interview. Because can I tell you, I have seen contestants who I know that their strength is interview, but maybe their weakness is in runway, and they choose a coach for like interview, who's good at interview but doesn't really do runway. So that's the other thing you have to look out for, is that there are coaches who are specifically a coach for one particular area of the competition. So you might have runway only coaches, interview only coaches, and then you will have coaches like me who kind of do everything. So if you come across a coach like that specializes in just one area, you want to make sure that is an area that you need the most help in, because it makes zero sense to choose someone based on your strength already. Because how is that helping you? You're only wasting your time, you're wasting their time. And then when it comes to pageant day, you will not get the results you want because you didn't put the focus on the area that you needed the most help in. And the other thing that I want to talk about is making sure that your coach is training you for the right pageant, meaning that they are catering their training sessions to you and the system you're competing for. I can't tell you how many times I've seen contestants on stage or just competing along the journey, and it's almost like they're competing for a completely different pageant because their coach is not necessarily understanding or training them in a way that is in alignment with the system that they're competing for. That is a big problem, and that will cause you to lose points because every pageant is different and they're looking for something a little bit different in every girl. So if you come in there and you are not in alignment with that pageant, then you're not going to maximize those points and you're not going to get the results you want. So just be mindful of that. Another reason why I like to meet with girls is to set expectations. I think it's really important for everybody to set their expectations so you know how things are going to go. And this will eliminate any potential issues that you may have in the future. So just make sure that when you meet with your potential coach that you are laying out what you hope to gain from the pageant, from the coaching experience, and also listening for what they expect of you as a client. So those are some things that I do with my contestants. I also want to kind of talk a little bit about some red flags that you definitely want to look out for. You want to look out for coaches who speak down to you, coaches who are a little bit rude or mean to you, coaches that can't coach. That is actually one of my biggest pet peeves, is coaches who can't coach. And sometimes because they know how to do something, they think they know how to teach it, but that is not always the case. Just because you know how to do something, it doesn't mean you know how to teach it. Teaching, it's a real skill. Trying to coach someone for a pageant, it is a real skill, and you do actually have to know how, right? It's one thing to tell them you need to do XYZ, you need to do something, but they need to break it down. They need to be able to break it down to tell you how to do XYZ. I also want to note that even if a coach doesn't know how to do something, or maybe like you might have an area that is not really their focus or their expertise, they should at least have resources for you. They should be able to direct you to someone else who can help you with whatever particular thing that you need help with. Another thing you want to look out for is favoritism. This is definitely the case if you have a coach who maybe they have multiple clients competing in the same pageant. You want to be careful of favoritism. I know for me, where I'm located in the Cayman Islands, a lot of girls do not like to have a coach who works with multiple girls for that same reason. You also want to look out for coaches who speak poorly of their past clientele. Yeah, that's definitely something that you want to pay attention to, because you don't want to work with someone who's going to turn around and potentially speak poorly about you. Another thing I want to touch on is this idea of contestants being loyal to certain coaches. I definitely think you want to be careful of this. If you are a contestant who's been hopping from pageant to pageant to pageant and you're not seeing any progress, you're not seeing the results you want, you might want to look for a different pageant coach, because maybe that coach just is not the coach for you. I know that there are some girls out there who they want to be loyal to a specific pageant coach because that pageant coach has been there for them for years and years and years. And maybe initially when they started out with that coach was helping them to get results. But if you're going from pageant to pageant to pageant and you're not seeing those results, you definitely will want to look into trying to find a different coach, because maybe you've outgrown each other. And that happens. So don't feel like you have to stick with the same coach over and over and over again if you are not getting the results that you need. Something I also think that you should be wary of is working with multiple coaches at once. I definitely feel like this is a recipe for disaster. I don't think it's smart to have multiple coaches, especially, let me rephrase that. If you have multiple coaches for the same area, so for example, if you have more than one runway coach or more than one interview coach and you're going to both of them at the same time, I just don't think that is the best thing, because I do feel like that can lead to a lot of confusion, especially if the two coaches are not on the same page. They've never worked together before. They may have different tactics. They may be teaching you different things. And I think that is a way to confuse yourself. So if you want to work with more than one coach on a specific area, then I would say, take a few sessions with one coach at a time. And then when you're finished with the first coach, go to the second coach and see what else you can learn from them. But trying to go to both at the same time, I think that leads to a lot of confusion. Those are all the tips that I have for finding the right coach for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with the pageant girl in your life. Until next time, have a great day.